All right, let's talk about Hawthorn because they had their colours lowered by Sydney yesterday, and I think it's fair to say, as Damo alluded to a little earlier, Clarko probably didn't exactly cover himself in glory post-match either, did he?
He didn't, and Damo touched on the deflection there. But you just take a look at them after the game, and you just want Clarko to come to the realisation. He may have already, but he's not saying that publicly. Average points for 44, 73 against, now 15th on the ladder. They've become a bottom four team, and you just want him to come, or someone say, Clarko, what do we want to get out of the last 9 rounds? What are we going to... Because we've got to start planning for 2021, 2022. Stop saying, OK, we'll back in our senior players until we get to this point, because that time's gone, Damo. I want to know what their plan is to improve and get back up to the top again, because the way they're going at the moment, they're going nowhere.
You've been all over this as far back as round 2, and we'll have a look at what you said back then in a few moments' time. But let's just get to the big storyline out of the game last night. Tom Papley was the most influential player on the ground, kicked 4 goals, and 2 of them came this way. He's kicked that goal there, as you can see in the second quarter, and then is roughed up off the ball, and a subsequent free kick is given, from which he also goals. Now, Alistair Clarkson, as we said before, in another attempt at deflecting from his own club's problems, decided to make this the big storyline out of the game when post-match he had some really condescending words to say about Tom Papley, and then John Longmire, the Swans coach, was bemused by being told that Clarkson had said that about Papley.
He milks a free kick as good as anyone in the competition. And he did so on this occasion again.
Do you have any view on that, or what would you say in response to something like that?
Alistair said that about Papley?
Yes, yep. Just moments ago.
I don't know. Don't talk about opposition players and clubs.
Now, those 2 men were once really close, and they've still got a friendship, but it has been fractured to a point since Buddy Franklin left the Hawks to go there as a free agent after 2013. But that's the second time in 3 weeks where John Longmire's been bemused by a coach having a crack at either himself or one of his players. And I personally don't have an issue with Clarkson and previously Damien Hardwick making comments about other clubs, but John Longmire clearly does and has raised it several times in the past.
Yeah, but it was a little crass, wasn't it, on Alistair Clarkson's part?
It probably was, TJ.
What it looked like was someone who just can't handle losing at the moment.
I think that's what it gets down to in the specifics of Alistair Clarkson.
He's grumpy, but you don't talk about opposition players.
Shouldn't he, Kane, be saying, James Frawley, I'm disappointed in James Frawley. He coughed up a goal that we didn't need to give up, more so than talking about what Papley's doing?
Yeah, absolutely, Lordo. And if you look at the actual incident, Tom Papley didn't even see Frawley coming. So you can't stage for a free kick. It's not like the one that we're going to show with Mark Murphy and Jasper Pittard a little bit later on in the show. He didn't see him coming. Frawley's got 18 kilos on Papley. So the frustration should be directed at a senior player who's been there for a long time, not at the hottest player in the game right now, and that's Tom Papley.
What we did love is Tom Papley's reply on Insta last night, LOL, which means, of course, lots of love. So that's nice. He's throwing that out there, which is really nice. Lots of love to you, Clarko. Good on you, Pap.
Sorry, Bill, when people send you that text message, I think you need to know it doesn't mean lots of love.
No, it does, especially the ones I get.
Let's talk about the Hawks and Alistair Clarkson. I think this is the loss that they needed to have. Now, whether he has come to that realisation, Lordo, perhaps he has. He's smarter than everyone else, so I'm sure he understands where they're at. But when you look at the loss yesterday and how bad it was, I reckon Sydney are 2 years ahead of where Hawthorn need to be with their rebuild. Look at the missing players from that Sydney team. I reckon it's 5 out of their best 10 not playing. They had no right to win this game, Sydney. And with Hawthorn's experience, the average age was 2 years older than Sydney yesterday. This was the loss that they had to have to think, well, hang on. This is worse than we thought it was. This is the realisation that we need to actually rebuild. So, as we've spoken about at length the last fortnight, what happens in the next 2 years? Is there a situation where it's like Jared Ruffhead at Hawthorn for Sean Burgoyne, where they think, well, what's the point in playing a champion like Sean Burgoyne for the rest of the year? Why are we playing Frawley? Why are we playing Stratton with the form that he's in? Tom Scully's another one who hasn't had a kick in 12 months. So, do they really just need to find out who on that list is going to be there in 5 years' time and use the next, 7 or 8 rounds to actually work that out?
The big thing about Hawthorn has always been how good they've been kicking efficiency-wise. And you think back to their premierships and their half-back line, a lot of left-footers, and they kick the ball so well. At the moment, I don't think I've ever seen a Hawthorn side kick as badly. 43% by foot yesterday, 28% in the last quarter when they needed to stand up.
28%.
They're back in. Frost, Frawley, Stratton, Hardwick, all these guys aren't great kicks, whereas they've been really solid defenders, and they brought Wingard in, they've brought a few other players in, O'Meara, to be good kicks. They're playing the same game plan, but they just don't have the same cattle to execute the kicking the way Clarko wants to, so he's got to get some better kicks in there.
We've heard of the Kennett curse. What about this Clarko curse here, when Clarko made some comments when they defeated the Kangaroos? Since then, both sides are winless. That's 8 losses in a row. So the Clarko curse, maybe.
Ooh, where'd you get that one?
Mitch gave me that upstairs. What's wrong with it?
And Lotto, look, the whole industry now is assessing the Hawthorn team and has been doing so probably for 3 or 4 weeks now. You were onto it, well, you have to give you credit for it. Round 2, the resumption of the 2020 season.
Thanks.
June 14, when they lost to Geelong, and Clarko made some comments post-match, again deflecting then, but you were onto it back then.
Clarko makes them competitive, but who's their best young player coming through?
Yeah.
So I reckon they've brought in too many players from other clubs. They had 9 the other night that had come from other clubs.
Hanrahan and Morrison are probably their next best young players.
They're taking picks 60 and 70. They're giving away too many early draft picks and topping up. And the way you win premierships, we're talking about Rosie, Butters and Dersma. Top 20 picks who change your club. Clarko, to me, doesn't want to go down to the bottom. He doesn't want to bottom out. He wants to stay around the point.
Yep.
He might get them to 9th or 10th or 8th, but I think with what they've got, they're not going to challenge at all for a long, long time. And that Sydney side they played yesterday, some of these names: Bell, Florent, McCartan, Dawson, Rowbottom, Taylor, Mills, Heaney, Blakey. Yeah, Heaney didn't play, obviously, but that's where you'd be wrapped if you're John Longmire to win a game like that, because he knows what he's doing. He's planning for next year and the year after. He's taking the hits right now. Yeah. Clarko, walk in on Monday and say, we've got to start taking the hits from this weekend. Take them. Make some hard calls. Finn McGuinness, OK, bring him in, the son of Scott McGuinness. Yep. Jackson Ross. There's got guys that have been on the list. Jyath, CJ Jyath, play him. That's what he's got to start doing from this weekend.
Find out who can play.
Who can play.
Because Kane, he had a media conference through the week, which was, a little surprising on a number of fronts, the way he tried to deflect things and the manner in which he was doing that. But he did address the Dad's Army concept.
For the first time, TJ, I think he did put those older players on notice. Let's have a listen to him during the week.
We're backing in our senior guys, but at some point in time there needs to be a changing of the guard if the senior guys don't perform. But you've got to understand that this club and me personally and these players have got pretty decorated history with the club in terms of what they've contributed for our club. So they need to be backed in and given an opportunity to perform. But that will only go so far before we say that we need to inject some more young talent into our group.
Which is exactly what you're saying, Lordo, and that point has probably come now, where they're at that stage where for the last part of this year, let's find out whether the names you just mentioned can actually play and who's going to be here in 2 to 3 years' time. So you would think that point has come. I mean, we've addressed Ben Stratton as well, the skipper, and it's a really tricky situation for the club to be in. It was the wrong choice. We said that at the time, but once again, Ben Stratton, 6 disposals. He has no influence on the game of football. So, you know, it's a massive call to drop a captain of the club, but he just doesn't have an influence. Now, they'll make a change at the end of the year, we know that, but he's been poor. He was poor against yesterday, not only with his lack of influence, but also his impact around the ground, as we're seeing here. So, big call coming up for the Hawks with Ben Stratton at selection.
Well, I think the other thing too about Stratton, Damo, is a very low media profile. You know, like I know if I can use the example of Fremantle, when things go tough at Fremantle, I think Nat Fyfe almost steps up and says, I'll do that. I'll face the media. But we don't actually see a lot of Ben Stratton in the media. Now,
no, we
don't know how much of a chunk of the captain's role that should be.
Yeah.
But we don't see him much.
No, we don't, but that's who he is, and that's why it was a discussion topic when the club did announce him publicly as captain last year, and he hasn't changed. And I think to Kane's point, though, Kane was critical of the time at the appointment and has been since, that maybe it is time for a change. But I wouldn't be critical of Ben Stratton for not being in front of the media, because he never was prior to becoming captain.